So, absolutely delighted to be joined by Patrick O'Leary, the newly crowned European champion in Paracanoe, specifically in the VL3 200 meters event, making history with Ireland's first ever Paracanoe championship medal, and went on as well in the same competition to finish ninth in the final of the KL3, and no surprise with the win in VL3 after a fifth place finish to qualify for the Tokyo Paralympic Games at the World Championships in 2019. So, thank you very much, Pat, for joining us.
Thanks, Sam. That all sounds great. It doesn't sound real yet, but it does sound great. So I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Once you keep polishing the metal, just having a look at it, it'll stay real.
That's it.
So to get right into it, so tell us about the race. So I know, watching myself, I was coming from a different discipline. It's great to see how much can happen in 45 seconds. So just tell us about the race itself.
Yeah, well, I wish it was 45. If it was 45, I would win in Rio or in Tokyo by 2 seconds at least. But no, it was 50. But yeah, look, the final was really good. I think, like, the sun really shone on me. I got a brilliant start. I had been working over the previous couple of weeks after the World Cup in Szeged. I had worked on changing my start technique a bit. And that really worked really well. I had problems in Szeged on direction, and I'm still, because it's a canoe event effectively, so you're paddling only one side. And when you're putting down a lot of power, direction is always key. So that worked really well. And if you look at the overhead shots, actually, my two main competitors, they wandered a bit off the line. And the real thing with this boat is, like, if you can keep it going in a straight line, it'll hold its speed really well. But if it deviates at all, you are going to kill your speed on the way back. So that was it. Like, I really nailed the directional control. I have the power, and I kind of knew that. And then I kind of had marked the guy inside me, who's Marcus Svoboda, who's an Austrian paddler, as someone to kind of, I needed to be a little bit ahead of him. And at about halfway, I realized, actually, I'm a lot ahead of him now. I'm better than I was. And at that, I was too far away from anyone else to tell. So it was just a case of keep the speed, and hope. And I got a great shoot at the end. And 0.1 of a second, we'll take it. You know, it wasn't even my closest finish of the weekend. I had my qualification for the final in the KL3 was 0.004 of a second. So, you know,
a good horse only jumps as high as it has to.
Yeah, well, it was definitely running that race, all right.
But I was going to ask, how aware are you of your other competitors? So with Mascara of Spain, who got the silver, it was such a tight finish. How aware were you of him? I know he was a couple of lanes away at all, or is it just keep the head down and just power?
I knew it was, he was closest to me, and I knew going over the line that I definitely had a medal. So you can kind of tell the shadows in the periphery, but you really, going over the line, you cannot tell in the Vaha in particular where you are. So there's two different design of boats as well. So some paddlers paddle a much longer boat. It's not like K1 where there's a minimum length. In actual fact, you can pretty much have whatever length you like. And so you can lose perspective on the boats. If the person next to you is paddling a much longer boat, they could be level with you body-wise, but actually quite a bit ahead of you in nose-wise, which would never happen in a K1 because they're all almost identical. So you just kind of have to ignore it a little bit. But I knew he was there or thereabouts. And I knew the French guy, Eddie, was close as well. But it's really a case of, the struggle is always to stay in your lane at that point and just say, yeah, it doesn't matter what they're doing. All you can do is go as fast as you can, you know?
Exactly, yeah. So although at your level, you're going to go into every race kind of wanting to win, but were you expecting to be that fast, and were you going in with the expectation to really contend for a medal, or in terms of your preparation leading into Tokyo, were you hoping to ramp up later in the year, or how was the peak for this race?
Well, we had, myself and Neil, my coach, had discussed the year, and I suppose particularly with the COVID break, kind of said that the World Cup was probably just going to be a touch finder really to feel where we were, but that we would try and peak. So I trained right through the first World Cup, and that we would try and peak for the Euros. I really wanted to come away, regardless of the result, I really wanted to come away from that competition thinking that I was in the mix for Tokyo. So I wanted to be, even if it didn't come out that I got a medal, that I was close enough that I could see, you know, the next 11 weeks as it was, could make the difference. So that was the most important thing for me, regardless of whether I got a medal. Now, when I was lining up, the heats, even though the heats were run one after the other, there was a massive difference in the times in the heats, because the wind changed. So we couldn't actually compare. So like I was going into it, even though I had done quite well in my heat, I was actually one of the slower boats going in, but I was fairly confident that some of that was condition wise. And I knew that, you know, I was there or thereabouts for the top three. So I was delighted to kind of carry that through anyway, you know.
To go into the Paralympics now with a target on your back.
Yeah, well, look, as I said, it means that I'm in the mix. That's all that it means. There are lots of guys, non-Europeans, in the field in Tokyo, and it's very hard to compare races and times with people, because you know it is very condition dependent.
Yeah,
so it's really until you line up against someone you don't know. But I suppose it's a reasonable place to be. I know I'm there or thereabouts to be in the mix, and after that, it's a question of how the next, you know, whatever it is, 10 weeks now goes, and yeah, we'll see where it goes, how the sharpening up goes at the end, you know.
Well, with the racing in Tokyo itself, so you're racing both the VL3 and the KL3, and race two finals of that at the European Championships. How is the racing for those lining up in Tokyo? Will there be a break between the two of them to give you a rest between the finals, or do you know how that's laid out?
Yeah, so it's working out okay. So in a normal run of events, say in a World Cup, I would have heat and semi of the K1 in the morning of the first morning, heat and semi of the Vaha in the afternoon, pardon me. And then the finals would be the following day. So generally, or the following days, generally say if that's the Thursday, 4 races on the Thursday, 1 final on the Friday, 1 final on the Saturday. The way it's going to work in Tokyo is slightly different. There will be a heat and a semi of, heat and a semi of the Vaha and a heat of the K1 on the first day. The second day, there'll be the semi of the K1 and the final of the K1. And the third day, there'll just be the final of the Vaha. So it will be a little bit more even. And the other thing is, like, everybody will progress from the heats of the Vaha in particular. So some people will progress directly to the final, but everyone will at least progress to a semi-final. So it really is one significant race in both boats on the first day, one significant race or 2 significant races on the second day, 1 significant race on the third day, all going well. So it's balanced. I mean, I like racing, and I do get sharper as I go on. So, you know, and sharpness in one does transfer to the other. But, like, you know, we'll have to balance it as we go and see how it goes when we get there.
I suppose a quick one now, not asking you to pick between your 2 children, or which do you prefer, the KL3 or the VL3? And don't let the medal color your answer.
I won't. I prefer K-boating. I'm better at the other one, but I only took it up. It's 3 years. I'm only paddling one-sided for 3 years. But actually, the first year I spent swapping sides, and I couldn't really get enough speed out of it. So I've really only been paddling one-sided for 2 years. I've been doing K-boating since 1994 or thereabouts. So, like, it'll take a while before the Vaha takes over in terms of first love. it's also easier to train with other people and to paddle with other people in the K boats and wash hang and stuff like that. Like the Vaha does suit me. I like power. I like just being able to. It is, once you get the technique right, it is pure power. And there is an element of pure power to it. A little bit less than the K1. The turnover in the K1 is so fast that the blade never sticks quite as much. You don't get the same feeling as pulling as hard on a blade. So I do like that aspect of it. But yeah, K1 is still my first love.
Very good. So just to finish up on the question that I've been towing around the whole time. So what are you feeling going into Tokyo now? Obviously taking a massive amount of confidence in, especially with this being your second Paralympic Games. You now know what to expect. Are you going in to be, I know the lay of the land, I was going to enjoy it, or are you going in with any expectation?
I suppose it's the same for me as it was in Rio. In Rio, I went in with the firm aim of being in the shape to deliver the best race I'd ever delivered, and then doing that. And I kind of firmly believe that the best race I've ever raced was the final in Rio. So that, coming away from Rio, regardless of the fact that I was sixth, that was a huge achievement for me. I would love to think that I could come away from Tokyo thinking the same in one boat or both boats. But, I think regardless of the outcome, and you haven't control over what everyone else is doing, and particularly this year, you don't know where everyone else is. So all you can control is yourself. So I would love to think that, I think I need to be in the shape to do probably a 1 second PB by the time I line up in Tokyo to be in the mix. I'd love to be in that position. I'd love to deliver that. I don't think the conditions will be, because it's out in the middle of Tokyo Bay. It's going to be wavy, it's going to be windy and stuff, but I will know whether that was what I delivered or not. And then if that's good enough to deliver a medal, that's great. If it isn't, I'll still walk away with my head held high. But I won't back off until I'm 2 meters over the line, and then I'll worry about it after that.
Yeah, it's fantastic to hear that it is that internal motivation of I want to perform for me and not for anything else. So absolutely best of luck with doing that, and we're going to be really looking forward to watching you compete and watching you really throw down in those finals. So thank you very much, Pat.
That's the plan. Thanks a million, Sam. All right. Cheers.